to belabor this again, but if we're trying to be consistent within the rules, in Rule 103, there's no time limit. So that technically, if you report a malpractice event of greater than 25,000, under Rule 105, that goes away from your record in 7 years. But in Rule 103, since there's no time constraint, would that information not still be maintained under Rule 103 since there is no time constraint?
I think Rule 103, I think the answer is no, Dr. Walker, because 103 is only about what you take in as a board from the licensee.
Correct.
And so that's about when, within 60 days, the physician's supposed to report these things to the board. And then when it goes off the profile will be determined in another section of the rules.
I think what you're saying is, again, the theory is whatever we collect under 103, we've got to make it available to the public, whether we publish it or not in 105. So you're saying that if we're collecting all payment information, no matter how far back, then could the public call up and say, I know you're not publishing but 7 years worth of data, but I'd like to know what happened 15 years ago. Could you give that to me? And the question is, should we limit what we're collecting in the same way that we're limiting the dollar amounts? Should we also limit the time range in what we're collecting?
Not collecting, but keeping on file.
The way I would read the rules altogether would, my interpretation would be that that's not a problem. Well, it couldn't hurt. It couldn't.
I think it might be just an abundance of caution to make sure no one would interpret 103 to require us to provide information outside of that 7-year period, and it wouldn't hurt to put that in there, make that clear.
But I guess you could see a case where somebody applying for licensure but has been in practice for 15 years, we ask them to report all things on their initial application, and that will go way beyond 7 years. And what you're saying is that somebody could call up and ask for that information, which I don't think I fully understood. I don't know about the rest of you, but I mean, I don't know where it says in the statute that all this had to be public, because that wasn't clear to me. Anyway.
Well, those, Dr. Huff, those questions you just addressed, if someone's applying for a license and they had a payment 15 years ago, the application form would require that be disclosed, but you would not be collecting that particular information pursuant to 90-5.2 for profiling purposes. So that's not something that would ever go on the profile, but you would collect it as part of the application, but that would be confidential, non-public information. With regard to what goes on the profile, the rules will speak to what malpractice payment information is on an application that would become part of the profile. We'd have to sort out for profiling purposes versus licensing / investigative purposes on the application the same way we would do it in the annual registration.
Which, as Dr. McCall said, that's where it's going to get confusing, I think. How are you going to sort out on the application, this is investigative, this is profiling, this needs to go back 7 years, this needs to go back 15 years. So I wonder if we do need to amend this here to have the 7 years in here to make it clearer for profiling. But I still think now this whole process is going to be very confusing to people on it, especially on initial application and renewal, unless we word it